Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of the No-Frills Teacher Podcast. I am Joe Camps, and joining me tonight is my very special guest, Paul Chilson. Tonight's episode is titled Reeling in Success. Once again, with my very special guest, Paul Chilson. Paul, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. This is exciting for me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. And I just have to say, first off, and we're going to get into a whole bunch to talk about. I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to. But right off the bat, for those that are listening, Paul is the most recent class of Golden Apple recipients through the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools. You are the class of 2025. Paul, congratulations right off the bat. I got to say that to you, man.
Well, thank you. It's an honor. It really was and still is an honor. And I know they're going currently through that choice process for the next class. And you'd be amazed how many people are texting me saying, "Hey, give me some hints how to win this. Give me some hints how to being the finalist. Hey, just give me some hints." And it's really cool because it's a fabulous experience that I think every teacher should actually go through. It's more than about winning. It's about getting together with your colleagues and learning from each other, and we bounce off each other. It's a great experience every time I've done it.
I couldn't agree more. It's an amazing experience going through the process. And although being a recipient is truly a humbling experience and such an honor, personally for me, the biggest takeaway was meeting other educators and networking and eventually having gained friendships, very close friendships. And really just those are things that went above and beyond the actual experience of receiving the golden apple. And likewise, here we are, two Academy of Teachers here,
Yes.
talking on a podcast now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool because the six of us that won last year have stayed in pretty tight contact with each other through text messaging and even bouncing ideas off each other this year and checking in on each other to see how each other are doing. And it's a family. It really is.
It is, and same as you. Likewise, I have friends reaching out, I have colleagues reaching out, and I, of course, have been soliciting and just giving, feedback and advice. Like, hey, just if you go through the application process, if you were nominated, which is the ultimate honor for a student to take the time and really think of you and to nominate you for this prestigious award. Like, hey,
Absolutely.
let me help you out and all that. And we're going to get to your side because I love something that whenever I have a Golden Apple recipient on the podcast, I really love to hear the experience, the day of story, and
Yeah.
we're gonna circle back to that.
Okay.
But I just kind of wanted to jump out there and congratulate you right off the bat because it's just such a huge honor. Let's backtrack now, and so if you don't mind, Paul, can you actually tell us a little bit about yourself? You're an educator, correct me if I'm wrong, fifth grade
Yeah.
and Pinewoods Elementary School
Yeah.
in Lee
34
County.
years, fifth grade.
Really?
34. This is my 34th year, not at Pinewoods, not even in Florida, but this is my 34th year. I was teaching in the 1900s. It's it's a long time, and I'm not ready even close to hanging it up. This is a passion of mine. I love it. It started, of course, back when I was 5 years old when my parents forced me to go to a school. I still
They
remember.
all seem to do
Yeah,
that. I don't know what's up
yeah,
with
I don't know. That
that.
was crazy. I still remember the bus I got on. It was in Traverse City, Michigan, and Traverse City school districts, when they would buy a new bus, the bus number would be the year they bought the bus. So they would have A and B buses. And I remember I was on 1972B was my bus number. And I didn't realize they did the number thing until later on. And now I look back, that was my first year of kindergarten. I remember going back. I remember the day I went into, I guess they call it try out or audition for kindergarten to see if I was ready.
If
I
you're
remember
ready.
that day. I remember creating a rabbit that I got to paste the cottontail rabbit on his tail. I remember those things. But honestly, my going through school had an impact on me as a teacher because I didn't go to just one school. I went to kindergarten and first grade at one school, and then we moved a lot. By the time I graduated from high school, I had been to 13 different schools
Oh,
in
wow.
my lifetime, in up through K through 12. And so we were constantly on the move. So I saw every kind of teacher that was out there. I saw the passionate ones. I saw the ones that were there to coach football, and that's all. I saw teachers that were there to collect a paycheck. I saw teachers that really cared about kids. I saw teachers that gave 100%. I saw teachers that gave minus 100%.
Mhm.
So I saw it all, and through those experiences, I molded my thinking to what the perfect teacher should be, and I've never attained that myself. And but I do know what students view teachers as. That's one of my strengths is I can see the teachers through the eyes of the students, and I try to be a teacher that's not just passionate about what I do. I try to be a teacher that's compassionate every day to every one of my students. I want my students to feel important when they come into my classroom. So the 13 different schools in my K through 12 experience really molded me into the kind of teacher I wanted to be.
It's something. Now, were all of your K through 12, was that all in Michigan, or did you move
No,
out of state?
we were in my father was became a missionary when I was in third grade to the Midwest area of the United States. He was a church planter. And so we lived in multiple states. I lived in Iowa and Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan and New York, Indiana. We were all over. About every
So,
9 months we would move to a new place.
so you really did get an
New
experience.
Yeah, it was. And everybody was like, "Are you a military brat? Is that how?" No, it wasn't. It.
Mhm.
My dad was a church planter and a church builder. And we lived in a 35-foot travel trailer hooked up to the back of a work van, and we would move it every 9 months to a new place and start with a new church there. And there were some positives to that. There were some negatives to that. Positives was I got to see a lot of the country. I got to see a lot of the educational system. I went through public schools, private schools. I was homeschooled for a whole year till I was expelled from homeschool. Couldn't get along with the principal apparently. But I was homeschooled for a year. I saw that, but there were a lot of negatives, personal negatives. Friendships were really hard for me to lasting friendships, real friendships were hard for me to develop because we would pull up roots within 9 months.
Yeah,
Any long term projects and stuff, I would always procrastinate and put off because I knew, hey, another 4 weeks, we're out of here. So
yeah. Why start? Exactly.
it developed some hard character flaws that I had to overcome throughout my whole life. But I would not have given up that life for the world. It made me who I am.
Oh, I gotta say that, like you said, although, there were some, challenges, there had to be obviously opportunities for that enrichment, like you said, to travel and see other states and see other communities and different educational settings. Myself personally, I was born and raised in New York City, Staten Island. So I
Yeah,
just only know one thing, growing up, it was the public education system, New York City K through college. Honestly, I went K through 12, and then I continued and I did my 4 years of college, my bachelor's degree, still in Staten Island at the College of Staten Island. So it wasn't until I moved to Florida that I really got an experience of what other educational settings are like, educational like beyond New York. And it was really an eye opener for me to go almost, such a big, part of
yeah,
my life in one state, one area, one system,
yeah.
and then come down here like, holy cow, like they really do things like this here. And especially as a career changer, and I didn't know anything, I didn't know what I didn't know. And, like I'd said, we had said previously, prior to this conversation, the podcast, I was sharing with you that career changer and my experience was in media. So
Good.
really jumping in is like baptism by fire for myself personally. I was never a student teacher. I did not sub. So I was offered a job and it was, hey, we need a kindergarten teacher. I was like, oh, kindergarten. I would never in a million years teach kindergarten. Never thought, dreamt of it. And it was like this or nothing, basically. So I packed up my car and I moved out and fortunately I got the job and I was like, oh, I could do this. And then eventually
Yeah.
I wanted to go up to upper elementary, and then the rest is history, so to speak. Now, going back to you, because this
Yeah.
episode's about you, not me.
No.
What made you eventually decide? You said talked about your experiences and going to
Right.
school, but upper elementary. Did you ever teach any other grade, or were you always upper elementary and you knew that's what you wanted to do? And what was your reason for that?
Yeah, I had a sixth grade teacher, Arlen Matson, who passed away about 3 years ago, who was a huge impact on me as a student and really became the role model that I wanted to be like in sixth grade. So when I graduated from college, I began looking for a place where I could become him. I wanted to replace him. And a cool thing is the first school I walked into that I interviewed at, where I ended up getting my job, was East Jackson School in Memorial Elementary in East Jackson, in Jackson, Michigan. And as I walked down the hallway after the interview, the principal was showing my room, what my room was going to be. They had a showcase window in the front of the classroom, just like the showcase window we had in my sixth grade classroom with Mr. Matson. And
Oh, that's
Mr.
cool.
Matson had placed my, I was a geek. I was a middle school geek. He placed my stamp collection in the showcase window so everybody could see my stamp collection in sixth grade. And that was such a confidence booster for me that I mean, that was the kind of teacher I wanted. So when I walked down that hallway at East Jackson Memorial Elementary and saw that showcase, and he said, "This is going to be your room," I knew it was made. That was where I was going to be. And that was 34 years ago. I got fifth grade. I had 1 year that I had a 4-5 split, which wasn't too bad because I got the higher level fourth graders and the lower level fifth graders, and I was able to cruise that year. And then there was one awkward year where they threw our fifth grade, actually fourth and fifth grade, threw it together up into a middle school setting, and which was crazy in the first place. But
Oh
they had to
yeah.
do it for space. And I actually taught a 5-7 split, which was unheard of. It was crazy.
I know. I'm trying to wrap
Anyone,
my brain around that while you say that.
no, I couldn't. It was crazy. And when I asked for curriculum for the seventh grade and the hours that I had him, because I didn't even have them all day, the principal said, "Well, just do something to keep them busy." That that
Of
was
course.
was like, okay, so I'm teaching fifth grade and trying to keep seventh grade middle schoolers busy while, of course, trying to keep them away from the fifth graders
Of
because I
course.
didn't want that seventh grade impact. But that was, other than that, this is my 34th year teaching fifth grade, and I love it. I wouldn't want to do another class. I wouldn't want to do another group.
So I have to ask, and I'm glad that my wife is from Michigan because when you talk about Traverse City and
Yes.
Jackson, I'm familiar with those areas. Especially Traverse City. We go boating. My in-laws up in Harbor Springs and now
Yep.
Charlevoix, and we do the cherry festival and all those
Right.
things. Which if you love cherries and you're listening, you got to go to Traverse City, Michigan.
Yeah, the odd thing about the Cherry Festival is us residents leave that week because all the visitors come in.
Yeah, that's us.
It's our week to get away.
We're,
We
we're,
cannot
we're
leave
those
Cherry.
we're those people now. My
Yeah.
wife was, she was, native, obviously growing up before moving to Florida. But people like me, yeah, we go up there, and that's us. So when you say those places, I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
understand. I've been there, and I could really, I get it. I have, a friend from Jackson and all those things, which is awesome. So like many people, transplants. What if you don't mind sharing with us, what
Yeah.
brought you out from the Mitten all the way down to Florida?
Oh, this is an interesting question because I attribute it to multiple things. Mostly, and I don't mean to get really religious here. This was a God thing. This was clearly a desire that he placed on both my wife and my heart. And I knew I could not move here. I had too much going on up there, but we just held the rails as he opened door after door and brought us here. We decided this. We'd vacationed in the summertime here multiple times, like 4 years before we decided this was where we are going to move to. People in Michigan, you're going to move to Florida. How do you handle the summers? Well, that's when we came down. We would come down for our entire summer and rent a condo for 2 months and be here all summer long. And we just fell in love with this place. My parents moved to Florida a couple years before we decided to come here, and they're getting in their 70s and close to 80 now. I think Dad's 80 this year, and their health is declining. So my other closest brother is in Missouri, and we thought, well, you know what? Maybe it's best for us to be there. I got my retirement already in Michigan, so the plan was to come down here and just to retire. But I spent a week in the condo here with my wife, and she put this big honey-do list on the table and said, "I need this done." I said, "I can't. I'm going to be teaching," and I went out and found a job as fast as I could. So,
That's one way to
and it,
keep, that's one way to avoid it.
yeah, that's right. So I don't have the honey-do list now. So it's really it just everything fell in place. God gave us not just the home here; He gave me the school. Leslie Gunderson, our principal at that time, told me, "I'm sorry, there's just no way. We have room we want you here, but there's just no room for you. The stars would have to align." And 3 weeks later, she called me. She said, "I don't know what happened, but the stars aligned. We need you here." So that fell into place. The church home we found is just down the street from us, less than 2 miles away. I mean, everything that
That's
we
remarkable.
needed
Yes.
was
It
right.
really goes, like you said, things, you know, big, it's just things happen for a reason, whatever,
It is.
God's plan is, and just faith, whatever you want to call it. Like you said, the stars aligning. It's
Yeah.
clearly where you and your family, your wife are meant to be. And the students and the community could really honestly only be better for that. And I can say that because, well, obviously, aside from reputation of, Paul Chilson and the remarkable educator that you are, I have my own close personal, friends who, their child is in your class. We had talked
Wow.
about with my friend Josh, and just wonderful things, obviously, and just the community truly values you. And that kind of now we could circle back to the Golden Apple, kind of what that day was like. And yeah, for those that are listening out, we have in our county or in Southwest Florida, in this, within the school district of Lee County, there we have the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools Inc., which does this remarkable program, and I've talked about it often on the show, and I've had multiple Golden Apple recipients, and I even have President Marshall Bauer on as a guest previously. It's really shining a spotlight on educators because it is a thankless job. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like it is. If you disagree, please, chime in. It's
Oh,
a
it is.
thankless job. If people that listen to this podcast are usually educators, so they're all nodding in agreement as I say this. So they do this wonderful, incredible job of shining spotlight on educators within the county. And it's not the six best educators like that's established early on. It
Yes.
is six representatives of all the amazing educators within the school district of Lee County. And
Right.
this experience, this networking and this collaboration, and then it ends with the apple, receiving your apple on the day that it happens. And what was your experience? How did that go? Like, can you walk us through this? Because
Yeah.
I love hearing this. I really do.
Yeah, it was an interesting day, but before I get there, I have to say, when I was teacher in Michigan for so long, I taught at two different school districts, and no matter how good your lessons go, you always have doubts about, well, am I really a good teacher? Am I really where would I compare elsewhere? Because especially the districts I taught on were pretty small districts, and then come down here to Lee County, which is the 20 something, the biggest county or district in the United States, just fitting in as a little pea in a pod. I thought now I'll be able to just determine. So the first time I got nominated for Golden Apple, I was thrilled. I was thrilled to be nominated, like you said, and I went right from that nomination right to a finalist my first year, and I was shocked. I was not sure what the process was, and it was an amazing experience for me. But I was sort of reluctant to do any of the stuff that they had out for the teachers to do. Then the second year I got nominated again. I said, okay, I'm going to try for this. I'm going to go for this, and I'm going to try really hard. And I made a finalist again the second time, and that was an even more amazing experience because I I fully immersed myself. I went to every activity. I got to know the other teachers by name. We were texting each other. I got to go to Collegium, which is a phenomenal experience
Mhm.
that summer, and I still didn't win, and I would really wasn't going to try it again. I thought 2 times is plenty. I've got the acknowledgement that I need. And this past year when I got nominated, I really felt I didn't want to let the students down that had nominated me again. So I went for it again, and the experience is wonderful. It's great. I felt more like a leader in the experience again because I'd done it before, and people were coming to me, like I said, and asking me questions about what to do next, how do we handle this, how to dress at each of the events, things like that. But the day that the Golden Apple was delivered to my classroom, I'll confess, I was keeping my eye on Facebook, um, because the foundation,
Yep.
oh, here is our first Golden Apple recipient
Uh,
with a live video. And I watched them as they gave one away, then a second one away, and a third one away as they were moving south from Cape Coral down to the southern zone where I teach in. And I got like a 30-second heads up from my principal. I don't even think she intended to do it. She called out of the blue and said, "Are you in your classroom right now?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Are your students with you?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Okay, I want to talk to you for a minute. I'll be there in a second." And I knew right away. Knew right
oh,
away. So it was a great timing though. One of my passions is to in the classroom is to make my students fall in love with reading. And even in the 5th grade, we have a rug that the kids sit in. I have a rocking chair, and I read aloud to them every single day. And that's what I was doing when the Golden Apple came through the door. Is I was sitting in my rocking chair with my students gathered around on the floor, and I was reading out loud from one of our novels that we read on a daily basis. And it was an amazing thing because not only my students were there, our classrooms are really close together and we're in a pod type situation. And all the 5th graders from all the other classes came in, and the 4th grade kids came in, and the TV crew was there, and Marshall was there, and everybody was there. It was a great experience. I still don't even know what I said at that moment.
yeah.
I was numb. I really was numb the rest of the day, and I would know I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't know what I taught the rest of the day, but when they leave, you're like
Yeah.
left in a vacuum.
You're on cloud 9.
Yeah, you are.
You really are.
Um,
You are.
an interesting spin off of that, though, is they put it on Facebook. And that night, my pastor from church called and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to have a celebration for you at church on Sunday. Make sure you bring the golden apple with you." And I said, "Oh, great, let's do it." And when I hung up, it was then that I realized that I had left the golden apple on my desk back at school.
Oh,
So my plan was to go into school on Saturday and get the golden apple with when the custodial crew is there, and bring it home for the celebration at church on Sunday. But when I got to school Sunday morning, it was locked up tighter than Fort Knox, and I couldn't get in. So as the story goes, I went around the back side of the swamp and climbed the 8-foot fence
oh wow.
and snuck into my classroom and got my golden apple in my backpack, snuck back out, thinking that I was totally unknown and that I had pulled it off. And to be called into the principal's office Monday morning and want to know why the alarm system went off on the building. And I just told her there must have been some deer in the field that set it off. And she says, we have videos. I said, "It will never happen again." And she said, "We understand. Thank you."
That might be the best story I've heard so far.
But I did get my golden apple out. I did not want to make the newspaper. Golden apple recipient arrested for breaking into his own school.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
I
would have been
know.
embarrassing.
Yeah, that would have been probably another first.
Yeah,
The same weekend go from the highs to the highs to the lowest of lows.
right.
But I'm with you. It's hard not to check like the day if you're a finalist, you're checking Facebook, the same thing, and you try to think that you have it all figured out, and you really have
You
nothing
don't.
figured out.
No, you don't.
No, it's the same thing because I was at the time I was teaching at Sanibel, which, furthest away, except for some schools in the Cape and all that stuff. And my theory was, well, they're going to want to get a trip out to Sanibel over with first. Like, you're
Hmm.
not going to want to be in traffic. You're not going to want to sit on the causeway. All like if I'm not number one, I'm not getting this thing. Like they're not. There's no way they're just going to randomly come throughout the day to Sanibel. So one comes and goes. It's Nathan Bueller, I want to say, over at the time at Mirror Lakes and out in out in Lehigh. So, and I'm like, I text my wife because she was also, she teaches at Sanibel. I'm like, it's not happening. It's not happening. I go, first of all, they didn't come out to Sanibel first. So there goes that. And then they gave it to another fifth grade teacher. So I was convinced that you can only give it to one grade. You can't have two fifth grade teachers. Get it? Only one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's like, oh, it was a good run, blah, blah, blah. And I'm having a pity party for myself. And one of my students like, Mr. Camputaro, there's 5 more left. Don't worry. So of course I'm trying to put on a good front for them, but like heartbroken already, like gave up because this is now my fourth time, fourth consecutive year being a finalist, and I was just like, this is it. Like I'm done after this. And then like I was literally number 4 that day out of 6, and they came. And my principal, it was when we were doing hybrid. It was 2021, so Zoom in class, kind of that whole thing that was going on. And my principal kind of gives like, it was just strange. She comes to my classroom and she's like, we need everybody outside to do a lice check. I'm like, what? I was like, a lice check? I was like, I'm not gonna. Oh, you're gonna get them out in the courtyard? Like, what did I send them? Like one at a time to the clinic? Like we've done, forever.
Yes.
And so just, I was like, that's the lamest way to get me out. But so I'm still completely oblivious. I'm like, all right, this is weird, but whatever. It's a weird year. Who knows? So go outside, and the second I step outside, my wife and my daughter are standing out there in the courtyard. I'm like, oh boy. And Marshall, the whole gang comes and waterworks at that point. I was like, oh my God. So but it's really a pretty amazing experience. And like I said,
after that you lose it. You lose track of what happens. You can't think for a day or two.
Oh yeah. Now like totally, like I said, Cloud9, who knows what I told the kids? Who knows what I promised the kids? At some point I promised some sort of party, apparently, because then I have at the end of the year, the kids reminded me that I promised them a party. So
we went to Costco the day that the Friday they delivered it. We went to Costco after school, my wife and I, and we were walking through Costco, and there was another couple with a shopping cart, and they stopped, and he pointed at me, and they both said, "Congratulations!" And to this day, I have no clue who they were. My wife has never seen them before, so people were congratulating me left and right that I didn't even know who they were, and I would just smile and say thank you, and it's an amazing thing.
I gotta say, I missed the banquet this year.
Right.
When you guys had the gala, went to the induction to the Academy of Teachers over on Cap T. I was present for that, and you all gave a speech, and I gotta say, it was just listening to you and your fellow recipients just really share your passion for your students and for just this profession. It's invigorating, really. It just revitalizes you as an educator, because it's easy to get burnt out and worn down in this profession. But I always feel like I feel renewed when I attend the Golden Apple Banquet, or I'm attending the induction to the Academy of Teachers, listening to your story and your colleagues' stories. And I got to say thank you, really, because you guys are the spark that
I think that's what the Golden Apple does. Even for me, one of the other recipients this year said something that just resonates so clear and so true. She says, when I have a bad day and things are getting down in the dumps and I'm starting to doubt, or the grind starting to wear on me, she says, sometimes I'll just glance over and see that golden apple sitting there. And it's just enough to say, you got this. You're great at what you do. Just keep going. You can do this. And that's what it is for me too. It's that special symbol, whether it's a lapel pin I'm wearing on my suit coat, a little golden apple, or the name tag they gave us, or the golden apple itself that sits right on my podium in front of the classroom. It's when I see those things, they're just positive reinforcements that I've got this, no matter how bad it can get. It's a great symbol. And I know they can only give 6, but there are so many deserving teachers out there that really are better than me, and that are fabulous people and never get recognized. And that's why that's what I tried to say at one of my speeches. This isn't just for me. This is for everybody. This is
Yeah.
for my colleagues at my school. I've got some of the best colleagues, my co-teacher and the teachers next to me that teach the same subjects in ELA together in fifth grade. I mean, we're tight, but they're fat. I wouldn't want to work with any other team. They're great. They're fabulous.
Well, when you're with the right team and the right school, it's the right fit. You just know, and then you look forward to going to work. There's obviously the opposite end where it's depending on the culture, the environment of the school that you work at.
Right.
Right there. So let's be real, it will dread going to work,
Yeah.
but when it's right, it's right, it's right, and there's no other way around it. I feel. But now, 34 years, right? You said you've been
Yes. 34
educating.
this year.
And so you see obviously a lot change in the profession, and we are, there's these shortages, and we could spend probably hours talking about all the negative things that are going on.
Right.
I could list, hey, mandates, blah blah blah,
Right.
student behaviors, but you said you're nowhere close to calling it a career yet. So my question to you really is two parts. Is the first part would be, why is that? Why do you see yourself continuing? And then my second part is, what kind of advice do you offer and do you give, or what do you give to teachers that are newer to the profession, and they're
Right.
just they're reconsidering their choices as
Right.
what they're doing here.
Right. I agree. It gets to be a dreadful thing sometimes. And I don't think that's on the system even. I think that's on society. I think a lot of the dragging us down is from society. It's not, I mean, we as teachers make the doctors, we make the lawyers, we make the professional football players that make millions of dollars. And I'm not saying we should make that same kind of money, but I really think that it's easy to get down. But the reason I'm not gonna quit, it's me. It's my passion. It's been instilled in me in the center of me. When I know this is called reeling in success. When I go fishing, and I'm standing down there on a rail and some dad or uncle brings his three kids down and tries to catch a fish with them for the first time, I'm giving up all my rods and I'm over there. I'm helping them. I'm teaching them. I'm letting them reel in the things that I hook. I want to. I'm a teacher in everything I do. I teach fishing. I'm a Sunday school teacher at our church. That's a passion of mine, and I love doing that. It's just the core of me. So I don't think I could ever give it up completely. I might wind back and teach other things, other places. I love the outdoors, and so I could see myself doing something for the outdoors or the state, teaching kids at different places later on. But right now, I'm exactly where things I need to be. I love my kids. I thought I would go into administration. I would never do that now. I love my classroom. I love making connections with every one of my kids, and I try to do that. I try to connect with every single kid that comes in my classroom in a outside the classroom way. I try to find out about their ball games. I try to find out what they do in their spare time. I try to find out what video games they play, and I stay up to date with their other 6-7 lingo and all that other stuff.
Oh, of
I
course, well, you have to,
yeah,
especially with those fifth
I just
graders.
had to throw that out there. That I
To
just had to.
be, love it.
So I try to treat them like they're an adult. I try to have conversations with them like they're an adult because they're gonna be one of these days, and it's happening multiple times. When I've taken my car in to get it fixed, guess who the mechanic is? One of my former students. Or I've been into the hospital, and one of my nurses is one of my former students. They're gonna be adults someday, and I want them doing their best at that time. So I treat them, every one of them, with respect. I try to. So what do I say to the up and coming teachers? First of all, it has to be a passion in you. It's not something you can just do for a living. It's not just something you can try to make a career out of to make money. Of course, that's crazy. It has to be a passion in you, and let that passion come out. Let the kids know that you're real. One of the phrases I use every day is, "That's the first mistake I've made all day," or "That's the first mistake I've made all week," or sometimes "That's the first mistake I've made all year." And I make mistakes constantly, and I'll admit to it. I'm right in front of the kids. I'm not too proud to say, hey, that was a bonehead move. So that's you got to be real. This is not a occupation. It is more of a calling, and that's how new teachers have got to look at it. My I had an intern 2 years ago who is now my fabulous co-teacher, and from the day one she walked in, she had passion. She definitely had a passion. She told about when she was a little girl going down in her basement, setting up a school classroom in her basement, and teaching her stuffed animals, and that's in her. She's going to be in for the long haul, and those are the kind of teachers that we need.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We need passionate teachers, dedicated teachers, and like you had said, ones who build relationships with students. It's not just a clock in, clock out kind
Yeah,
of profession, kind of job. That's what the job is. And these are going to be adults. It's our future. These students, like you said, whether they're, your mechanic or your nurse or your doctor, but making and building those relationships and sustaining those relationships like you do, which I admire, that is the kind of impact that we want to have and we want to make on our students so that when they look back, they have these fond memories of school, not my teacher was miserable or my teacher always gave me attitude and a hard time. And therefore, now when I have children, I'm going to not trust school with my own children because of my experiences I had when I was a student.
right.
It really goes a long way. But you had mentioned about the fishing, so and reeling in success. So like kind of that play on words with the title here. And when I should say success, yeah, we have all different measures of success, academic success, right? Our state assessment, student performance. I
Mhm.
feel getting to know you through this episode and a little bit more about you, throughout the Golden Apple process, and then obviously, through you know colleagues and coworkers and all networking. Success is at least in your eyes, and I don't want to speak necessarily for you, but it's more about the relationships you build with your students. Yes, academic
Yeah,
success is nice, but it's really that community that you have built within your classroom. Would you agree with that?
yeah. Absolutely. And it builds the academic success. When you build that community, when you build those individual relationships with your students, they will come to trust you. And when they trust you and they see you as somebody, hey, I can get information from this person, I can learn from this person. Now your learning is going to jump to the next level. They're not just going to sit there and say they're just reciting information from out of a book. And I build those relationships outside of the classroom as well. I mean, I at the beginning of the school year, I always say, hey, if you guys have a football game scheduled, bring it to me. I'll attend, or girls softball, or those things like that. I try to get to. I've been to church services with kids at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're putting on programs. I've been to swimming meets where I don't even know which kid is I'm cheering for because they all look the same underwater with a
Yeah,
white cap. I've been to a dance competitions where I've been there all day for 10 hours from beginning to the end because I've got kids left and right. I mean, I try to be there just to support them in their outside of the classroom activities. And then when they come in, I always talk to them. I'm like, you said your dog's going to have puppies. When does those due? Or is your brother home from overseas military yet? Or things like that. Or is your dad coming in from? He's a migrant. He was out picking watermelons. Is he home yet? Those little things I know about the kids, and I touch base with them. Everyone, I tried to touch base with every single one every day. And that again, once we get to then the science or the reading, then it pulls them right in. It's an amazing thing.
relationships before academics. That's really
Yeah,
that's the best you can say it. And you had talked about so your students' extracurricular activities, your hobbies, and you had mentioned about watching other people go fishing.
yeah.
So I'll be completely honest with you here. I know absolutely nothing about fishing. So
Same
yeah,
here.
so I really don't. And my father-in-law tried teaching my son and I because listen, I grew up. My dad never took me fishing.
Yeah,
Kind of. Could I ride the subway? Could I navigate and take the ferry? Absolutely. My eyes closed. I could do that. Can I tell you how to cast a line? No, I'll probably get the hook stuck in myself. I think, like the little Spider-Man one that you buy at Walmart, like, can't hurt you. My son and I, we used the same one this summer on my father-in-law's boat. So just put that out there. So I'm not ashamed to admit I know
Yeah.
nothing. So you can tell me anything about fishing. I'm going to be like, oh, no, oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I saw a
Fascinating.
couple little taunts on Facebook about you and fishing, so I knew that was probably coming.
Yeah,
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 interesting though is my dad did not take me fishing much when I was little either. So everything I started out with was just I've always had the passion to pursue. I love animals. I do. I love animals, but to pursue an animal, and that was always an amazing thing to me. I remember taking my little Mickey Mouse rod down to Travers Bay, where when we lived 4 blocks away, and literally snagging a sucker. It's the first fish I ever caught, and the sucker must have weighed about 3 pounds. And I remember literally marching home with that sucker hanging from. Of course, it's unedible. It's not a
yeah.
edible fish, but to have that hanging from my fishing pole as I walked, and people beeping their horns and waving at me, that was one of the most proud moments. And then my mom, oh, bless her heart. She said, "That's wonderful." Knowing it was not edible, she goes, "We're going to put that in the refrigerator and have it for dinner one of these nights." Now, we never ate it. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened to it, but it was amazing. And I just, from that moment, every body of water I would look at differently than most people. I taught myself to fish. And I was a pretty good fisherman, pretty decent fisherman. And then about 18, 19 years ago, one of my students that I had in fifth grade's father approached me and said, "Hey, listen, can you run a video camera?" Because I was taking pictures. I said, "Yes." He goes, I need somebody to videotape me on a TV show." So I went along and ran a video camera for him on the TV show. And that turned into one thing and then another. And pretty soon we started producing our own television show. And for 10 years, I videoed, edited, and produced a TV show that's still on networks today called Fishing 411.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
it's still running today, although I'm not part of it anymore. The first 10 years I was there, and the backbone of that television show. And during that, we spent our summers, our vacations traveling around the Midwest and Canada, and even to Florida and California, filming TV show about fishing. And through that, I learned a ton more than you can imagine about how to fish. And it's really, now I fish for fun, and that's all. I don't consume the fish I eat. Everything I catch is catch and release. It's
Or at least,
just something I love to do. I love to fish. Last Saturday, I took a 3 hour nap under the Cocohatchee Bridge with through 2 fishing poles in the water. Didn't have a single bite, but it was a great experience just to be out there. I love to fish.
what, if you don't mind, greatest catch, like largest catch? Like,
We
everyone's got a story. So what's, all right, every fisher's got a story. What's yours?
the biggest fish I ever caught was a group catch. That's how you catch them that big. We caught a 250-pound mako shark
Huh.
in San Diego, out of San Diego, after the international ICAST, the professional fisherman show. We got a person out there that took us out. I've caught my big catch that I catch every year, and I actually had a chance to go back to Michigan and do it accidentally, actually, the last week of July this last summer, the Chinook salmon, and they get to be 35, 40 pounds. And those are big fish. And I love those. I've caught some really big red grouper out here in the Gulf with some friends. But yeah, I like targeting things. One of the things I loved when I was in Michigan, I had a bucket list of fish I wanted to catch. One of those fish on my bucket list was called a peacock bass, and as far as I knew, they were only in Venezuela. And I almost had a chance to go there with a fishing show and fish for peacock bass because it's a fish I really wanted to fish for. And when I moved here to Florida, I started seeing posts online of people catching peacock bass in our area, and it's become my go-to fish now. I love to fish for peacocks, and they're all over here. And
So you have caught, so you've caught them
I
at these
caught
quite a
them
few.
now. It's great. I love the it's a fish you target, and they're very aggressive and fun to catch, and it's a blast as long as you can keep away from the alligators. The alligators are the ones that want to
Mhm.
catch what you catch, but I've learned about them too. So
Oh, I can imagine. You probably got, yeah, some stories about some alligators too around
Yeah.
here. Good to know. So now if I need my son to learn anything about fishing, I know to reach out to you or watch
Yes.
a video or just straight up say, Paul, I need you to come out, man. Help me
Yeah.
out here.
There's
Because,
a couple of teachers elementary teacher kids too, and I think they want me to take them just to give them a whole Saturday off.
yeah.
Go, Mr. Chilson. He'll take you fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so like I said, completely ignorant. I had seen something and I know this isn't necessarily fishing related. I'm just gonna ask you just out of the blue. There was something you had put on Facebook or somebody had put on Facebook. It was, I want to say Wales in Michigan. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
No.
And I I was like, was that AI? Like, so I excuse my ignorance,
That was
obviously, because freshwater.
yes.
So
No, there are no whales in Michigan, and the only reason I posted that picture is because a lot of my friends here in Florida don't know that whales are only saltwater animals, and the Great Lakes are freshwater. So I
exactly,
posted.
yes. Because then I went ahead, I saw your post, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this can't be. I like, see, this can't be real. Like, because
Did you
I feel
Google it?
I've learned, like, hey, freshwater, salt
Uh,
free. I got like a million tourist T-shirts from Michigan, my friend, that all say salt free that I get, whenever time I go up there, my wife buys me. So I show my wife your post. I'm like, Alexis, like, have you ever seen these whales in Michigan? And she goes, Joe, just there's no whales in Michigan. I'm like, I know, right? But Paul put it up here. It's got to be true. So I clearly took whatever you put on Facebook face value. By the way, just so you know.
yeah, my colleagues and my students are all laughing right now because they know if it comes out of my mouth, then most likely it's 90% not true.
Good to know. Good to know. Yep. So I felt very guilty. Oh, the man on my phone. She just laughed and she goes, "Oh my
It's
god."
really
She's like,
bad when my wife falls for them too. That's the worst.
uh,
That's
yeah. She's like, Joe. She goes, hello, freshwater. Because I don't know of any whales that live in freshwater, Joe.
yeah.
So, so good times. And man, hey, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening and getting to hear your stories. Just the fishing, the golden apple, just your passion for your students and this profession. It really, I I know I'm gonna take away from this episode just being once again inspired listening to you and hearing your stories like I was when I was at the induction for the Academy of Teachers. And uh, it's remarkable what you're doing. Is your students are very lucky and fortunate to have you, the community in Lee County, your school, Pinewoods. Thank you for everything that you have done, continue to do, and certainly will do in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Joe. This has been a phenomenal experience. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is a first for me as well. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. I look forward to having you again. And then future, we could talk more stories. Maybe I could share some of my fishing stories with you in the future.
That was great. Both of them.
Good. Well, yeah, all too. Uh, well, everyone, this is the No-Frills Teacher Podcast, Season 3, Episode 11, Reeling in Success with my very special guest, Paul Chilson. I'm Joe Camps. You all have a wonderful night. Goodbye.